This is Tossing It Around on WIBX 950. Jeff Manaski, and joined on the phone from our Townsquare headquarters, I'll call. It's Drew Weisholtz. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So you had an opportunity recently to do something that I've thought about doing, ever since I was a little kid, and that's going to fantasy baseball camp. Although in my dream, I played for the Mets. I think you went to Yankees camp. Is that right?
I did go to the Yankees one in early January at their spring training facility in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you went that early in January. What was the weather like?
It was pretty nice. We were there for about a week, and there was one day where it was rain and we were kind of washed out, but that happened towards the end of the week.
Wow. All right, well, that's cool. So tell me about how long you've wanted to do this, and then how did it come to be where you finally said, all right, I'm going to go down and check out camp?
Sure. Well, this is not something I think that I actively thought about doing in my life. I had known about fantasy camp, and I always thought, oh, that would be pretty cool. The reality of how it came to be is that I just turned 40, and my wife got this for me as a total surprise. So it was my birthday gift.
Uh-huh.
And she just thought, she knows I'm a good Yankee fan. She thought it'd be a great idea. So she did all the prep work it was a couple months behind my back, and then surprised me with it on my birthday.
Wow, that's really cool. Just so you know, in my dream, it was always that I would go like a late teenager, early 20s, and I would be some undiscovered talent, and then it would lead to a contract for me, although obviously that's not in touch with reality. But so you go to this fantasy camp. You had no idea. How long from the time you found out, was this like a Christmas gift to the turnaround that you actually get on a plane and go down to Tampa?
Well, it was a birthday gift, and my birthday is in early December.
Okay.
So I had found out in early December, and the camp is like mid to late January. So I had about 6 weeks of knowing that I was going to go. I went to the batting cages once.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even work on my defense whatsoever because it's so cold outside, especially at the time. So it just wasn't going to happen. So I had about 6 weeks of just, knowing that I'm going to be going to experience something that is just ridiculously off-the-charts fun.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you that, actually, if you hit the cages or if you spend any time in the gym. So it's late January. You leave, right, the cold, miserable Northeast. You go down to Tampa. When you show up, what are the other guys and maybe gals? Give me a description. Are they all about your age? Are they older, younger?
That is a fantastic question and something I was actually very curious about myself. It is quite the dichotomy of people, if that's the right word. You have some guys who are in their 30s, some who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. There were guys on my team who were in their 70s.
Wow!
So it's quite a variety of people that are there, and some of them, I got to be honest with you, some of them can really play. I was very surprised and impressed that a lot of these guys could still hit the ball. There are guys on my team in their 60s and 70s who could teach me a thing or two about hitting. They were fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you go down there, how long are you down there for? And then I'm assuming it's like former players who are instructing at the camp, right?
Yeah, it's you get down there. The camp starts on a Monday, and on Sunday morning it pretty much runs out. On Saturday night there's a closing banquet, and then you're free to leave pretty much after that. As far as the former Yankees who are there, there's about 24 of them, and they serve. Each team has about 2 retired Yankees working as their coaches. So on my team, for example, we had Orlando Hernandez, El Duque.
Awesome.
And we also had Oscar Gamble as our 2 coaches, who were just 2 great guys. It was really fun. And, what an experience. You sit with them in the dugout. They try to help you with your hitting. They coach third base. It's quite the surreal experience.
That is really cool. So I'm assuming El Duque has learned how to speak English. I know he would use that as an excuse in post-game interviews sometimes, right?
That's another great question. His English is not great. Truthfully, it's not great, but you know what? What a great guy. I mean, you can see he's genuine. He's very nice. He has a very good sense of humor, even though you don't speak the same language. You can see he's a pretty funny guy and just an all-around, really well-put-together, well-spoken guy.
Any childhood heroes growing up? Did you run into anyone else? Who else were the talent that they had down there?
Well, you've got a nice range of ages of Yankees players. So you've got Yankees of like the 60s and 70s, players like Fritz Peterson and Jake Gibbs and Ron Blumberg. And then you have players a little bit more recent like Marcus Timms and Shane Spencer and Homer Bush. And then you got players sandwiched in there like Oscar Gamble and Jesse Barfield. Bucky Dent was there, who I thought,
wow.
to me, that was, yeah. Yeah, wow is a great word, right?
Yeah, well,
so
I can't
it's
say.
It's a wide range of players.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I say wow because you can't say what his, what Red Sox, according to Red Sox fans, he has a different, he has a middle name that you can't say on the air. So we'll just call him Bucky Wow Dent.
You know what's interesting about Bucky being there is that Mike Torres is also at the camp. So that's a pretty unique experience. The guy who threw the pitch in 78 is there with the guy who hit the home run. So very, from a fan's perspective, I'm sure they've come across each other many, many times. But from a fan's perspective, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, look at these two guys who took part in one of the most dramatic moments in rivalry's history. They're here together.
And it's funny you say that because up here in central New York, there was a fundraiser for I believe it was for a Catholic high school locally, and they brought up, every year they bring up an ex-Yankee or someone baseball fans would know and love to meet. And one year they brought both Torres and Dent up to basically do an autograph session during this dinner. So I think actually they probably traveled together quite a bit, but that's an awesome experience for a fan.
Yeah, it really is. And part of what makes that experience so great, too, is that not just on the field of play, but there's plenty of other opportunities when you're not playing to, approach the players and talk to them. Just ask them questions that, as a fan, you've always wanted to ask. Whether you're at the hotel bar, at the end of the day or during lunch between games at the Yankees facility, you can just sit down and, talk to them. And it's a very, what an amazing experience, because as a fan, you're always separated by TV or you're in the stands.
Right.
And in this environment, you're, 2 feet from these guys, and they're here. They're happy to talk to you and share their experiences. And, it's just, it's still surreal to me to know that I was able to take part in that.
I have 100 more questions. I'm going to try to run through these as quick as I can. Plus, I want to hear any cool stories you have. So first off, you show up on Monday, right? And there's some getting familiar with the players and your quarters and where you're staying in the field and everything. So do you guys get fitted for uniforms? Are you actually in Yankee uniforms, or are you like the gray team versus the blue team? Tell me how this works to the actual getting on the field and playing and gear and equipment, all that stuff.
Sure, a good question, and one that I was actually very interested in finding out myself when I got down there. They ask for your measurements for pant size and hat size before you go, so that information is all processed. So when you get down there and you go into the locker room, and it's the actual locker room the Yankees use in spring training, you have a locker with your name on it, and your uniform is hanging in it.
That's
and it
awesome.
is the pinstripe uniform. It's pretty amazing.
Wow, man, that is awesome.
Yeah, and so you get a uniform of pinstripes, and you also get another uniform of a blue top, kind of a blue mesh top, because when you're playing the other teams, one team wears the Yankee pinstripes, and then the other team will wear the blue tops. So it's really a matter of just differentiating the two squads.
Sure.
So some games you're the home team, some games you're the away team. So you kind of have half the time you wear the pinstripes, half the time you wear the blue tops. But the pinstripes, yes, is a pretty amazing experience when you first put that on. Kind of the holy cow, I'm in Yankee pinstripes. How many people get to do this?
Does it have your name on it?
It does not. It's actually like the Yankee uniform, where obviously they don't have their names on the back of the jerseys.
Yeah, that's true,
You choose your numbers in advance.
Okay.
Also, and again, because this was a surprise, and it was a surprise for my 40th birthday, my wife had told the Yankees, my husband wants number 40. Truth be told, I would have liked to have had number 23 because Don Mattingly is my all-time favorite Yankee.
Yeah.
But my wife is not the biggest Yankees fan, and nor is she the biggest baseball fan. So she didn't really understand that. Truthfully, I'm totally okay with that. My wife's heart was in the right place, and I'm so appreciative of that to begin with.
Yeah.
So I ended up with number 40.
No, that's cool. That's still cool. So you go out, and is it just 2 teams, or are there 5 or 6 teams?
There's actually 10 teams.
There's 10
There's
teams?
100. Yeah, it's quite a few, right?
Oh my goodness!
I thought there was going to be 40 guys, and actually, it turns out there's 130 campers who go.
Oh my goodness!
And there are 10 teams with 13 players apiece on the team. So it's a pretty big scene. It's quite the scene to take in.
So I got to ask. I'll hit you with 2 questions at once. What position did you want to play, or are you allowed to play? And then when you're playing against other teams, are there actual fans in the stands?
You play wherever you want. You work it out with your teammates. You say oh, hey, can I go in and play second base this inning? And usually everybody on the team is good about making sure everybody gets to play where they want.
Yeah.
So, and it's very flexible. So if you go in as the second baseman for the first and second inning, and then you want to go to left field for the third inning, you can do that. Obviously, this is not a real baseball game where you're keeping, very, tight reins on everything. So it's very flexible that way. I played everywhere except shortstop and catcher. And I also got to pitch, which my dream come true. And what I really wanted to do in this camp was I got to pitch in the Legends game. We actually have a game against the retired Yankees. It's abbreviated 2-inning game.
Wow.
But I got to go up there and pitch against them. And, boy, you talk about turning into a 12-year-old boy and, reliving your dream of being a major leaguer. It was that moment for me, getting to go on Steinbrenner Field and pitch against Jesse Barfield and Bucky Dent and Homer Bush. And just what an amazing experience. So, absolutely off the charts crazy.
Did you shine or did you get shelled?
I actually held my own, to be quite honest with you. I gave up a couple singles and an unearned run, but I actually had a great play where Bucky Dent hit a comebacker right to me on the mound, and I went to my right and I got the ball and I threw out the lead runner at second base. And that is one of my greatest memories of life, is that I got to accomplish that.
Someday when it flashes before you, right, it's going to be snagging the ball and turning around and firing it to second base. That'll be in there. That's cool.
Absolutely. And I've actually since seen a replay of that play, and it's funny, in your mind's eye, you've made the greatest play in the history of baseball. And then the replay, it's okay. It's a good play. It was all right.
That's funny.
But to answer your second question, it's funny. One of the things about the camp that I also was surprised at are a lot of the campers bring their families with them because it's a very familial atmosphere. So a lot of the family members come and they watch their relatives play. So a lot of wives and maybe brothers, sisters, kids, whatever.
Yeah.
They will come down and watch. So you had a smattering of those fans at the games watching, which is nice. I mean, it's by no means the reason why you go, but it's nice to have people who are, on hand lending support.
Is there a public address?
There is a public address for the Legends game. Paul Olden, who does the PA, is there in Tampa. And during the Legends game, when you go to bat, your name is on the scoreboard in the Jumbotron in the outfield. And you also fill out a form when you arrive there asking, little tidbits like your favorite Yankee and your favorite Yankees moment, your hometown. And when you're at bat, Paul Olden actually reads that live while you're at bat.
That's really cool. Do they play a song when you come out?
They didn't. I actually thought that. I actually thought, what would be my at-bat song? But they don't do that.
It's funny. I'll throw a little sidebar in here. A good friend of mine who grew up in upstate New York now lives near San Diego. So he's become a Padres fan. And they do something out there with, season ticket holders. If you're a season ticket holder, one game, home game during the year, obviously, you get to go down on the field and participate in batting practice, and they will announce your name. And he goes, the coolest thing is I get to pick an entrance song that, as they're announcing it, I walk up and they'll play it as I'm heading to the cage, which I thought was really cool.
That is very cool. I think everybody would like to experience that. So,
right?
Yeah, that's pretty darn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no question.
Absolutely. So I know most of this I've just been asking you questions that popped in my head. Anything you want to share, any story that you talked about making the play on the mound, firing to second base, that's something you'll always remember. Any other stories that really stuck with you?
Well, truthfully, I could tell you about a million stories because everything that I experienced there was memorable in the best way. And, like I had mentioned, talking to the players is an amazing experience. One of the things I will take away from this, two things that kind of struck me. One was at the end of the camp, they have a closing banquet, and they announced the All-Star team, and I was one of the All-Stars, which
nice.
I never in a billion years I would have thought that. And that is a memory I will cherish forever. It was just so fantastic to be thought of in that regard, and I'll always be grateful for that. And then the other thing that, it sounds kind of hokey, but, meeting the other campers who go down there was also very interesting because, everybody has a story. And to talk to these campers about things that aren't necessarily baseball related, you get to realize, wow, everybody else has a pretty interesting perspective and a story about how they got to where we all are right now. And that's pretty interesting, whether it's on the bus, driving to one of the fields to play, or if it's at dinner one night. There's just so much fascinating information to be gained from just talking to people who are there because they share a common interest.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, my last question, I'll leave you with this. Do you get, because listen, you said some guys 50, 60, 70 years old. Do they have a really great training staff? Like if your back's bothering you or you twist a knee or something like that, did you get any like of this Yankees or MLB, great care that a lot of these players get?
One of the most unheralded parts of this camp, and it is not fair, is that the trainers do an amazing, fantastic job keeping everybody together. And I'm glad you brought that up, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how wonderful the training staff was. It is the Yankees trainers who are there, and you better believe that they are utilized like from the moment you get there, because you tend to forget that it is tiring. People think that baseball maybe, you're standing still a lot of the time. No, you hurt. Like after the first day, I was in pain. My quads were killing me. These guys did an amazing job with balming us up and taping us down and directing us to the ice baths, which was a very interesting experience because the water is freezing. But everything they did was really geared toward helping you stay on the field. And I got to say, I was in a lot of pain by the third day in particular. But the trainers, I would claim almost 100% responsibility for keeping me in good enough shape to stay out there. Awesome. They were fantastic.
That's really cool. Drew, I appreciate you taking some time to share this experience. This is really cool. It's like I said, it's something I always wanted to do, and then you just get so busy and you're like, I don't have time for that. I don't know if I can afford that, but it just sounds like a really awesome experience. Is it something you plan to do again?
That's a $1 million question. My wife and I talk about this a lot because I'd like to go back. But, life beckons and you have other concerns and things that you have to take care of. But we'll see. I would like to. Whether or not I will remains to be seen.
All right, Drew Weisholtz is our digital content manager with Townsquare Media and joining us here to kick it around and toss it around, I should say. Just an outstanding experience. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll tell you, kudos on making the Fantasy Camp All-Star team with the Yankees.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the interest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.